We all have that one friend who just one-ups you constantly. This one guy I know booked a movie his very first audition. The movie went on to become an award-winning film, and the time that we worked together, he completely stole the show. He went on to become famous, standing up for human rights, appearing on national news outlets, and even addressed the United States Congress. Oh, and he met the president twice. So I found it odd that on March 9th, the Washington Post, a national respected and historic newspaper, would publish an article by Ruth Marcus where she said she would have absolutely aborted my friend in the womb and, quote, moved on. Why would she say this? Because my friend Frank Stevens lives with Down syndrome. I'm Ben Davies, this is Pure Hollywood. Frank was my co-star in a movie we did a few years back, and he was by far my favorite actor to work with. So I found it odd when I stumbled across the article titled, "I would have aborted a fetus with Down syndrome, women need that right," which was written after Utah proposed a bill to ban abortions for the sole reason that the child may be born with Down syndrome. Ruth Marcus's piece makes a few arguments for the abortion of a baby for the sole reason of their genetics, but leads with the typical left-wing stance, saying, quote, "If you believe that abortion is equivalent to murder, the taking of a human life, then of course you would make a different choice, but that is not my belief," unquote. I'm glad your subjective feeling can offset the most basic human right all people should have. Life. Now, I've heard that argument before, but then she follows up with a very interesting statement. She said, quote, "I would have terminated those pregnancies had the test come back positive. I would have grieved the loss and moved on," unquote. Which begs the question, if it is nothing, if it's just a random clump of cells, and on top of that, a random clump of cells with an extra 21st chromosome, why grieve? Why mourn? Unless the reality you've cornered into the back of your mind for a subjective fantasy won't quite go away. But to her first point of aborting a baby for the sole reason of their genetics, I think Frank Stevens' address to Congress is a great stepping off point.
Let me say that I am not a research scientist. However, no one knows more about life with Down syndrome than I do. Whatever you learn today, please remember this. I am a man with Down syndrome, and my life is worth living.
Obviously, Frank establishes that he's been a productive member of society, that he is self-aware, and that his life is worth living. But simply life and its definition are not the only argument that Ruth is addressing. It's specific to the ban of an abortion after the testing for Down syndrome. She goes on to say, quote, "Isn't that the point, or at least inherent in the point, of prenatal testing in the first place?" First of all, no, that is not the only reason for prenatal testing. In fact, we just had a daughter in the prenatal testing. They were testing for so many different things that hopefully they could fix along the way if there was a problem with the development of the child. There are many amazing prenatal surgeries they can do, also the change of diet, and if the pregnancy needs to be sped up to ensure a more safe delivery. Beth Marcus goes on to defend her argument for aborting babies on the sole reason of genetics, and it brings up more than just a few problems. Quote, "Most children with Down syndrome have mild to moderate cognitive impairment, meaning an IQ between 55 and 70 mild, or between 35 and 55 moderate. Using this as an argument is so disgusting and problematic, I hardly even know where to start." But I think Frank goes on to address this very well.
Finally, we are the canary in the eugenics coal mine. We are giving the world a chance to think about the ethics of choosing which humans get a chance at life.
Frank addresses this point very well, saying that people with Down syndrome are literally the canary in the coal mine for eugenics, which is the process of removing undesirable people from the gene pool. Seem far-fetched? Well, not to the founder of Planned Parenthood, who was active in eugenics, but also there have been many horrific people, mass genocides and slaveholders that literally used this exact argument to defend their actions. That same line of IQ reasoning can apply to healthy people all across the United States. After all, it varies person to person on a curve. Not only that, but calling out a specific group of people solely on their genetics is extremely problematic. It is astonishing that the left will screech for equal pay. Everyone is created equal. But if someone has a lower IQ, they should be killed. But don't worry, you'll be paid the same. What? One of Beth's final points are rebutted well by Frank. Beth wrote, "I'm going to be blunt here. That was not the child I wanted. That was the choice I would have made. You can call me selfish or worse, but I'm in good company. The evidence is clear. Most women confronted with the same unhappy alternative would make the same decision." Unhappy alternative.
Seriously, I don't feel I should have to justify my existence. We are an unusually powerful source of happiness. A Harvard-based study has discovered that people with Down syndrome, as well as their parents and siblings, are happier than society at large. Surely happiness is worth something.
Frank cites a Harvard study that compared the lives of people living with Down syndrome and their families to the general population. And it was without question that these individuals and their families lived happier and better lives than the general population, who decided to forego this unhappy alternative that Beth cited. Now, I think Frank's life speaks for itself, but I do think that most debates are worth having. However, a debate on wages, education, or diplomacy are so unbelievably inconsequential and insulting if in comparison we're also having a conversation about your very right to live. I'm Ben Davies, this is Pure Hollywood. If you haven't done it already, you can now download the Rebel Media app. That way you have access to the entire Rebel lineup and can take it with you wherever you go.